there, welcome back to my channel. I don't know about you, but I seem to just collect and gather multiple fabric scraps. But do not stress, today we're gonna upcycle these fabric scraps into 3 exciting projects. Basically turning the useless into purposeful, into something new and beautiful. So let's get started. What are the 3 projects for today? So the first project we'll be making is this beautiful floral fabric brooch with a vintage button in the middle. Inspired by a magazine this came out of, which was Molly Mag. And I thought, well, that would be perfect to make up some fabric scraps, to use up and create something new. So we'll be creating that. And also, all these projects can be hand sewn. This one's definitely hand sewn. So if you don't have access to a sewing machine or know how to sew, it's okay. They can be hand sewn as well. The next project we're going to make is basically like a chicken hanger, I suppose you could say, that you hang on your door. It doesn't look very much here, but we're going to be making little chickens that will be strung together with beads in the middle and a bell at the bottom. Here's a photo of what it looks like finished to give you a visualization of what we're going to create from these fabric scraps. And the last one we're going to create is something practical and purposeful, and that is bowl covers. So like your one way to store things in the fridge is put it on a plate or on a bowl, and sometimes we put cling wrap over the top. Instead, we can use fabric as a cover of that bowl. They're simple and so easy to use, and they'll be our 3rd and last project for this video. So let's get started. What do you need to create our first one, the floral fabric brooch? Let's go. Floral fabric brooch. Try saying that like 3 times in a row. We're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of scrapped material. Now, you need to make sure you also need to grab a jam lid. So you need to make sure your scrap is wide enough to be the diameter of a jam lid. And for example, this wasn't much of the material left over, so I was able to use that and use up that last remnant of fabric. So it's really great if you've got tiny little fabric scraps left over, such as this one as well. And I've got this one as well, which should just make it enough. So you'll need 5 pieces. You can use kind of similar fabrics if you like, or completely different. It's up to you. You'll need a needle and thread and a vintage button, or just a button in general that would suit really nicely. And then lastly, you'll also need some felt, which will go at the back of the brooch. And if you've got any brooch pins lying around, you'll need one of those. Otherwise, I'm just going to use a safety pin. Simple as. So, step 1, gather your materials, and then trace and cut out 5 jam lid size pieces of material. So I've already got one here. I'm going to do the next one. And I've got some other material that I'm going to use as well for my 4th and 5th piece. Thread. And then you're going to grab your circle, flip it so that the right side's facing the table. You're going to fold it in half, and then fold it in half again this way. So go that way. Creates kind of like a triangle petal shape like so. And then what you're going to do is you're going to stitch that widest part. So this peak is going to be the peak of your petal. As you can see here, I've started these 2 here so that they nicely gather together to create a really nice petal shape. So you just need 1 continuous long loop of thread. So that one's come undone. Let me do that one again. And then you grab your needle and thread, and you're just going to get the corner there and just do a running stitch. Like so, and then you're going to gather it. So where's this one sitting? sitting there. So if you gather it, you'll see you've just created your next or your first petal. And you're just going to repeat the process till you get to the last 5th petal. Now I recommend using cotton material as it will be a lot thinner and less thick to sew through. This 5th petal here, the one I first sewn on, it's quite thicker than the rest, so as you can see it's going to be a bit of a fatter petal compared to everything else, but that's okay. I'm going to use it on this side, and then I'm just going to stitch it back through the first petal to secure it. We don't want that. Okay. Next, you're going to sew your button on. I couldn't find any large buttons, so I'm thinking the green one. Maybe that one might work. Got a couple of different combinations of buttons, but I'm thinking nice. We'll bring out the greens. So while my thread is still attached, I am going to sew my button on. Once you are finished sewing your button on, you need to get some felt and cut a 10cm diameter of felt. This will be stuck onto the belt, back of the brooch. You have the choice of either hot gluing it on or hand stitching it. I decided to be lazy and hot glue it, and then I've added a safety pin like so. That way I can wear it and the safety pin will always remain with the brooch. Once you've done that, you have completed a lovely floral fabric brooch, or any other type of fabric really of what you might use. Beautiful. It is super easy to do and would make a great So next up, we are going to make some chickens. Why chickens, you ask? Well, I saw this pin on Pinterest, as you do, and this lady called it a prosperity hen hanger. I think that's what she called it. And it was basically originated in India, and apparently hens or chickens are a symbol of health and prosperity, abundance and wealth. But regardless, I thought it was super cute to have a little hanging at your door with a bell on the end, just something quaint and quirky. So with this, you'll need some decent size fabric scrap. I have drawn up a template, which is about 14 by 14, and then you're basically that's gonna form your chicken. So you just need your template on some decent size scrap. You are gonna cut that out. Do I want another green chicken? That is my question. Why not? We'll get your fabric scissors. So excited to talk about chickens and how to make them. I forgot to tell you what you need other than fabric scraps. So what are you going to need? You need a needle and thread. You're going to need some fabric scraps, some decent sized fabric scraps, some stuffing, such as example A. You could probably use old stuffing from a pillow if you've got one lying around, or I have used bits and bobs of fabric and thread before. So if you've got an excess of it, great option and sustainable option to stuff your chickens with them. And what else you're going to need? You're going to need some beads, and fairly big size beads, probably that big, 5 centimeters, and some kitchen twine. You can use wool, but I'm thinking twine's going to be a lot more easier to work with when putting it through the chickens. And because you're going to use twine, you'll need a fatter, thicker needle rather than your regular needle that you can hardly see. I think that's it. Oh, and some pins. A sewing machine, you can hand sew if you want to. and some cardboard for your template that will create your squares, your triangles for your chickens. I think that's it. What else do I need? I think that's all. Yay! We can go make some chicken. You can make as many chickens on your hanger as you want, or as little. It's up to you, and it's just a really cute sewing for fun project. Okay, once you cut out your square, this is going to form your chicken. So you're going to fold it over into a triangle. If you've got a pattern, make sure the right sides are together because you are going to stitch this triangle. So there is my triangle. I then going to grab, if you're really particular and really like things down to a measurement, this method of what I'm about to do may not be for you, but because I have so much fabric scrap that just kind of just is bits and bobs, I loved this activity because I just go with the flow and I cut however I want to cut. So for example, for the tail, you basically need a small rectangle, sorry, get my shapes right, rectangle like so, that you're going to cut little what do you call it, little raggy edges into, like a fringe, that's the one, like a fringe. And that's going to form the chicken's tail, as you can see here. And I have no real measurement or size, so sorry if you really like to be particular, but for me it's just about having fun and using what I've got. So then this is going to go, I've been working on the left, so you're going to put it inside your triangle, and when you do, it's going to face inwards rather than outwards because this is going to be turned inside out. So you just get the triangle like that and the fold like so. Get a pin it there. And then for the beak, you kind of need a triangle. So what am I doing for the triangle for the beak? Maybe we'll go brown. As you can see, I'm just winging it. I like to cut a decent size square like so. I fold it into a couple of triangles. So I've just gone triangle, so I can match that up, and then triangle again. Whoops, that was very good. And so these foldy bits, the ones without the raw edges, will become the outer beak. So again, like the tail, you stuck it in facing inside. You're going to do the same with the beak to make sure all the raw edges are facing outwards. You're like, what have I done? I've done nothing. Well, check it out. Inside, you've got, whoops, your beak end sits there, your tail sits there, and you're going to sew the outer edge. You'll need a hole for the stuffing to go in and to turn it inside out, because you don't want to sew it all the way around because you want it to turn inside out, and that's really important. So basically you stuff these and then you get the number you want, and then we'll stitch them together and they'll be great little on top of each other, little chickens. I don't know, it's sewing for fun. I started making these out of different materials and stuff, especially I had a lot of check going on, and I thought, oh, it'd be like a little farmhouse chicken hanger. But then I found some tropical material, and this chicken has obviously been on a vacation. He doesn't quite match. But anyway. And also I will note, as I said, I'm not very adamant on being exact with my measurements because I'm more about having fun with the material that I've got, especially the scraps, and making do with them. Because this chicken is slightly smaller than the rest because this was actually a pocket. So this was a pocket off a shirt that I upcycled. So he's obviously together because you're going to sew along here. So that's how you do the triangle, and then you'll do obviously pin that. So then you'll have something that's pinned like so. This is where the tail feather is, so you're going to make sure to have a gap about that big to stop and have a hole there, so that once you sew it will look like this. You'll have that opening there that you haven't stitched, and that will allow you, and then what you can do is you'll cut the corners of your triangle so it's easier to turn inside out, and then you'll turn it inside out like that, and these pokies stick of some sort, whether it's a chopstick or a random pole, wooden pole like I found, helps to get the corners nice and neat. And then you get to stuff your chicken with wadding. So then you can stuff your chicken and he will look like that. And you can stuff him as less or more if you like. I also added some fresh lavender inside to give it a bit of a smell. Well, perfect evening activity while watching TV. It is very, very therapeutical. Sure, pop all your stuff. And sew him up like so. How you want to stitch that together, you can do a straight stitch, you can do a blanket stitch, you can do whatever you fancy basically, and then he's all sewn up to go with his other flock of friends to be stitched together into a nice big hanger. So I went to string your chickens together. So I found some twining yarn thingy my bob, and I've got like kind of like a darning needle size, and then you get to like hang your chickens. So I put 2 beads and a pony bead that I found in the cupboard in between. I think I'm about to run out of the brown ones, so I will have to make do, but that's okay. So basically you just push the needle through each chicken and just create whatever pattern you want and how many beads in between, whatever you fancy basically. And then it's going all around all over the place. At the end of the day, it's all about having fun and creating something so cute like that. It's definitely a weekend project, but how satisfying is that? Oh, nearly done, nearly done. And we're gonna create a hanger bit. So I'm just doing kind of like a loopy thing, double overhand knot. So that will create like a little thing you can hook them on. Look at them! Look at the bell at the bottom. Oh, they're so cute! This is definitely a weekend project, but I love them so much. They look so great. Perfect if you add them to a door, so when you open the door, the bells jingle. That's project number 2. Let's do the 3rd and last project of using scraps. It is takes less time than the chickens. Super easy project to do, number 3. So let's go and do that one. For for my third and final scrap project is making bowl covers. So basically getting rid of the need for cling wrap and using material instead to cover your bowls if you want to put some leftovers in the fridge or something like that, because I know I have a limited amount of containers, so these come really in handy when you want to store things into the fridge. So what do we need? We need some fabric. We need your bowls that you want the covers for, so perhaps you've got your mixing bowls or something like that. You can use those as well. I'm going to be using a small bowl, and for my example I've done a plate. So you'll need some what I call underwear elastic. It's the smaller, thinner kind of elastic. Sewing machine, you can hand stitch if you wish. This is a lovely example I did in a very boring calico colour. A top tip is to make sure you use cotton material or linen or calico. That way it'll be easy to wash as well. So you can see here, I have just stitched the elastic straight onto the material. And I've just added zigzag around the edge of the material to stop it from fraying. Now you can do like a little casing to thread the elastic through. If you're hand stitching, that is probably the best way to do. If not, you can still do it on the machine. I just find with circles, it's really hard to create a nice even casing rather than a square because it tends to gather. So that's why I thought I just sew it straight onto the material, super easy. So step one, grab your bowl that you wish to have a cover for, turn it upside down and trace the bowl. Like so. You trace that, and when you cut it out, make sure you do about a finger width around when you cut it, so that will give you excess material to sew the elastic straight onto. So I'm going to cut that out. To the sewing machine, and I'm going to show you how I attach the elastic, and we'll add some zigzag around the edge of the material as well to stop it from fraying. And then yes, grab your elastic as well, and we'll go to the sewing machine and I'll show you what I do to stitch. Zigzag stitch, and I just stitch around the edge as close as possible as I can get. That will stop the material from fraying. Next we'll add the now to stitch the elastic on, I just use the stretchy zigzag stitch, and I just lay the elastic on, and when I sew I pull it quite hard so that it will gather like so. And let's finish that off. Trial and make sure that it fits. It might be quite snug because the way you put the elastic on, but it's better to do like so. And you've got your own DIY plastic free bowl cover. Super easy. Well, there's 3 fantastic scrap craft projects for you to try next time on your next weekend. We've got the lovely fabric brooch, we've got some DIY bowl covers, and some super cute chickens that will add a bit of joy and a bit of colour to your house. I hope you had fun. I absolutely love having weekends where I can just sew to my heart's content and just for fun without putting too much pressure on myself. So anyway, resourceful, upcycling, stylish, and couldn't have asked for more. I'll see you next time. Bye!